A while ago, I decided that I was only going to ever own things that I thought were worth keeping. I have some family members who have done this, and I know some other folks that have done something like this. This is a Bark River Teddy 2 knife. It's made of A1 steel, has a convex grind on it. It's made mostly by hand, but it's one of the best knives you can get without spending obscene money. And while I'm still afraid to use it, I think it's one of the best knives you can get. And that inspired a lot of other things for me. This is the HK VP9, arguably one of the best, absolute, ultimate, everyday carry weapons you can get. It's fabulous. It fits my hand. I shoot accurately with it. It has night sights, a striker indicator, ambidextrous controls, and a 17-round magazine. It's perfect. But here's the deal. There's nothing good about it. Yeah, it's great. It's fabulous. It's perfect. But there's nothing uniquely great about this gun. So I embarked on a mission that I was going to only get guns I would keep forever. So we have this. This is my SIG 226 Legion in 9mm. Maybe, arguably, the very best version of the very best gun that Sig Sauer makes. While some people might argue about that, this is a step above one of the actual guns that is given to the United States Navy SEALs. I figure that's good enough for me. So in the same exact mentality, I decided that I was going to look for a gun that would be worth keeping and would be an everyday carry gun. Well, obviously one of my favorite guns that I have here is this Les Baer Monolith. This gun is almost $4,000 brand new. Well, maybe $3,500 brand new. But it's not a great carry gun. It's huge. It weighs at least 2 pounds, maybe 3, and it's in 45 ACP. Enter my newest project. This is the Colt Combat Commander. Well, one of the reasons that I've been drawn to this is that it is a collectible brand. It's for the most part well made, and it's in 9mm, and it's going to be promising, at least in its accuracy. As always, let's go ahead and make sure that everything is unloaded and that we're in a safe condition. Okay, well, that means we're good here. All right, so Colt Combat Commander. The Commander is the smaller size of the 1911. It's shorter by about an inch, maybe 3/4 of an inch, than the GI size or the standard size. Now, this being in 4 1/4 inches, it's actually right inside the carry barrel size for the 9mm Luger cartridge. Now, one of the things that you must know is that whenever you go to a 9mm 1911, you reduce your capacity by quite a bit. This one can hold a maximum of 10 rounds with one in the chamber. Magazines hold 8 or 9, in this case 9. So, what are we looking at here? Well, what makes this a special gun is that the Colt Commander is made of high carbon steel. It's the same steel that a lot of gun barrels are made out of. Steel equals heavy. That's okay. I don't really mind heavy. If you've ever seen a picture of me, I'm a large guy. I'm not so worried. That Les Baer is a little big. However, I think that that one's just a little too big for me. A 9mm in this heavy frame has a very, very gentle recoil impulse. So, as a result, I believe that this is a great gun, and it's a great size. Now, it has a lot of things on this that would be already upgrades. So, including these Novak sights. They are a 3-dot configuration. This one has the Commander hammer here. It has a beaver tail grip safety, an extended thumb safety. From what I understand, and I had seen on a couple other channels, I believe that the slide stop here and the hammer are both made of machined steel and not Min parts. Now, I can't verify that, but perhaps somebody else would like to help me out with that. This gun is taken fresh from the range, so it will have some goop on it. So, some of the things that are great about this gun. One, it's one of the most accurate guns I own. As of right now, and at least with range ammo, this gun shoots exactly to point of aim, exactly in the center of this white dot. And it seems to be fairly repeatable. One of the nice things about this gun is that because I am at least personally accurate with this gun, I wouldn't change anything in the entire running gear or the sights, at least for right now. But in order to make this a little bit more of a collectible piece, I'd like to do some tasteful modifications that a lot of people tend to do on these. So, at least as of right now, I'm going to keep all the original Colt parts, but add a few extra little things. First in my plan, Wilson Combat trigger. Now this is hopefully at least going to take up some of the slop that exists here. As you can see, this trigger moves quite a bit. Now, it's more apparent as you get, closer to the actual break of the trigger. But one of the issues that I've had with it is that this trigger just feels a little sloppy, and I'd like to have it fit a little tighter. I think I want to change these grips, even though they say Colt, and they're probably some type of micarta or Dymalux. I'd like to get something, maybe a Wilson Combat. I'm also going to change, for a few of the bulletproofed parts, the entire plunger assembly here, including the springs and the detents, the slide stop, because I believe that this slide stop may actually be out of spec, and that's something I might get into a little bit later, and then this safety here. And then eventually, I'll be looking at adding a couple more parts. But to at least get the outside controls and the trigger changed over, I'm also going to change the magazine release to a slightly larger, higher magazine release that has a new lock and spring installed. So the idea is that all of these controls here, including the trigger shoe, will be changed over. Now there's nothing wrong in the running gear as of right now. Like I said, it seems to fire every time, and I've had almost zero issues with any actual functionality other than what I believe is a problem that is associated with the magazine. Let's go ahead and talk about this magazine. This is a standard, feels like stamped steel Colt 9mm magazine. There's nothing wrong with it, except for the fact that I think that it has some congenital defects. And I think that it's worth mentioning that while this is empty, I have sometimes had a hard time getting the slide to stop back. Of course it does that because we're watching on camera right now. But generally speaking, I've had quite a bit of a hard time to get it to stick back. So, well, it's good that it's doing that. Maybe I'll just keep my camera on all the time and the gun will always run flawlessly. Now, that being said, I've had a couple of situations today where some lighter weight ammo, Browning, 115 grain full metal jacket, failed to cycle the action all the way back, and ultimately we ended up getting a round that was stuck between the extractor and the top part of the chamber here. And so I actually either had to push it down while trying to ease the slide down or try to cycle the slide to kick the round out. I believe that both of those issues came as a result of this magazine. One of the things that a lot of people have said about 9mm 1911 magazines is the angle at which the first round will sometimes sit up at. Instead of sitting in this pattern as it would rise through the magazine, the top round can sometimes form an extreme angle. Now, that extreme angle can sometimes cause it to be pushed up high, so where that the case mouth can actually catch on a hardened piece of steel somewhere up in this area. So, one of the things we're obviously looking at preventing is that from happening again, but otherwise, the lockup and everything has been generally pretty good. So, what I've done is ordered a series of magazines for this pistol. One by Ed Brown and a couple that are just like this by Wilson Combat. So my intention with this series is to show what this gun is capable of, what some of its problems are, and then ultimately show some of the tasteful modifications that I'm going to do that are going to help it increase in value and increase in personal value to me. I'm obviously going to have everything done by a professional, just to make sure that I can keep receipts that show that I have done the right things, and that if this gun ever is going to become part of my estate, at least everyone will know that it was done correctly. So right now I'm a big fan of everything black on black. With this red here is nice, but I do intend though to have these modified controls. I think as I said, as the locking mechanism and the barrel bushing and everything seems to be just fine. There is really no issues with the way that the gun runs other than the feeding. So that's sort of an important thing that I want everyone to know. I actually have decided that this is going to be a carry gun, and so what I have done today was I have ran some important different types of ammo through it, ones that I consider carry ammo, mainly Federal HST. So I consider it important because those are the rounds that I like to carry in all of my 9mm handguns, either that or the Hornady Critical Duty 135 grain plus P, and that might be better in this situation. However, I believe that the HST is going to get all of the performance because most of those have been tested out of a Glock 19, which is 4 inches. This gun is 4.25 inches, and so I believe that all the performance that one might find with the Federal HST in commercial videos and reviews will be identified, will be reproduced with this firearm. So a couple of things though that are noticeable that you might want to consider if you're looking for this gun for yourself. There's no checkering on the front strap. Now, that's something that even some of the cheapest manufacturers have got right now, T-Sauce, Springfield Armory. That being said, I really don't find anything about it that bothers me, to be perfectly honest. The 9mm is a very gentle cartridge, especially in a heavy gun like this. So there is lines on the mainspring housing. I don't really think that it being checkered would do much for this gun. The fitment on the back here is not very good, to be perfectly honest, and I would much prefer to see a much closer lockup. However, it's perfectly functional, and I doubt there's any issues. One of the nice things, and again, let's repeatedly check to make sure we're safe, is that the trigger tuning on this gun, even though it's an 80 series, is pretty remarkably good. And so what we're going to do is push in this trigger a little bit and find out that it just takes the slightest amount of effort to engage the thumb safety. Whereas if you watch a lot of other manufacturers, sometimes you'll have to push it almost all the way in for it to be engaged. In this gun, I push the trigger in, and just as you break through the tiniest little bit, it lets off. So, if anything, that means that the trigger tuning is probably pretty good. I just don't like the looseness of this little trigger shoe here, and maybe the Wilson Combat 190 ultralight match trigger will help with that. I do plan on hopefully getting some Starburst grips with a Wilson Combat medallion in them. I think that that will look good. I wouldn't mind getting them as Cocobolo color. Right here, this is sort of a layered Dynalux or something similar to that. But let's compare this to a couple other guns. In size, here it is next to a SIG 226 Legion. Here it is next to a full-size 1911. This is the Les Baer Monolith in 45 ACP. Here it is next to Ruger Blackhawk with the custom grips. Took this one out shooting today, and it was excellent. So what we have here is a gun that has an appropriate size for a carry gun. Like here is another carry gun. This is a Ruger Speed 6. And a Speed 6 is a 2.75 inch 357 Magnum. And if you look at them overlaid here, they're similar in size. Really, truly they are. And what you do get from the 1911 is 10 rounds versus in here you have a 2.75 inch 357 Magnum, which will probably only get you about maybe 1250 feet per second. And in this case, you're not losing a ton of performance with properly tuned 9mm defense ammunition. So plus this also meets the standard that I was looking for of something that's worth keeping. So obviously that's something that's important to me. And if you're a little bit of a snob, Colt is one of those brands that you can be a snob about, which is fun. So I don't mind beating this gun up a little bit, but obviously I think it's one of those things where I'm excited to see where it goes with this project, and obviously look forward to carrying it maybe for a lifetime. It has a nice sound. It's a little looser than some, that's for sure.